Okay, so we are back with a brand new update to Lightroom with version 9.4, and this one has a lot going for it. You'll find a healthy amount of new features and improvements in this update, including a big step forward with our popular assisted culling feature. But instead of teasing all this stuff, let me just show you all of these goodies that you can expect in the Lightroom 9.4 June update. So let's dive in. All right, so this is a what's new in Lightroom video, which means that I always like to start with showing you how to get those updates. You're going to launch the Creative Cloud desktop app on Mac or Windows, and then you can go to apps over here and then just click on manage updates. And then if you don't see the update here, just click on check for updates and the new versions should appear here. Now, this is a really important point. There's going to be a short window, a few days from when this video comes out to when the app, the Lightroom 9.4 app will be available for you to download. So if you're watching this video in that short window of time, don't worry, you don't have to leave a comment asking why you don't see it. Trust me, when it's released, it will be available to you. But in the event that you're watching this video in this short amount of time, you can just know that it's coming, and you don't have to worry about it. It's nothing to do with your account, nothing to do with your Creative Cloud desktop app. It's just, like I said, just a short window of time from when the video comes out to when Lightroom 9.4 will be available for you. Okay, so the first improvement that I want to touch on is pretty big for assisted culling. Now, we launched assisted culling for the first time last October at Adobe Max with Lightroom 9.0. It's available in Lightroom and Lightroom Classic. And basically, assisted culling is a AI powered tool to help you identify photos that are considered selects and rejects so that you can take a batch action on that. And if you don't know how assisted culling works, no worries. At the end of this video, I'm going to link you to a deep dive video of this feature so you can learn more about it. But for this feature, one of the things that we heard is that people want better insights into each of the faces in the photo. So especially if you have photos of more than one person. So I'm going to open up the photo drawer here and you can see this is assisted culling. This is where it lives in the Lightroom. I'm going to expand this. And so now we are in the assisted culling mode. And so again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining how assisted culling works because again, I've got a video that I'll share at the end of this one. But let's say I go ahead and I start with, I want to identify photos in this album that have exposure issues. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And right off the bat, Lightroom scores the photos and it's like, oh, okay, this photo clearly has exposure issues. And there's a good reason for that because I intentionally created exposure issues by jacking up the exposure. Now, just to illustrate that scoring is done dynamically, I'm just going to reset this to the default value and press G to go to grid. And then you can see now, well, there are no more rejects, at least no more rejects due to exposure issues. Lightroom reevaluated the photo once it detected that there was a change to it. It rescored it and evaluated that it is no longer an image suffering from exposure issues. So it's here. All of these photos are selects because none of them have exposure issues. Of course, you also have misfires and documents. So these are things as well, but I'm not going to spend time here. In fact, I'm going to turn exposure issues off. I'm going to go ahead now, though, and turn on, for example, eye sharpness. And so a 30,000 foot view of how these different models work is that when you enable them, in this case here for eye sharpness, same thing for subject sharpness, you'll have these sliders. And this slider is a score-based slider. And so currently the score is set to 50. What this means is if I press I to go to the info view, you'll see what we're saying, what we're telling Lightroom is that for the eye sharpness score, anything that has, in this case, a score of 50 or greater should be a select. Anything that has a score of 49 and lower will be a reject. Now, if we look at this photo here, you can see that eye sharpness has a score of 88. 88 is greater than 50, so it's a select. And that's kind of how this works. It's a threshold slider. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to increase the sharpness to 90, for example. As you could see, a few things changed. First, a bunch of the photos that were selected as selects have dropped into the rejects bucket. And then you can see if I go to all, you'll see all the photos here. And if the photo is a reject, it'll have this little X badge. If it's a select, it'll have this check mark. And so the reason why this is a select, for example, is because eye sharpness was given a score of 100 In this case here, eye sharpness was given a score of 57 and 88. Now, let's say, I look at this photo and I'm like, you know what? This looks good. Like if I zoom in, I can actually zoom in even more if I want. Let's just go to like 200%. You can see like that's pretty sharp. Like this, the eye that's closer to the camera sharp, but it falls out of sharpness over here. That's a photographer error, I think, on my part because let's see here. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm shooting at f1.8. I was probably pretty close to the subject here, and so it's going to create a very shallow plane of focus. So one of the things you can do, like in grid here, let's say I'm like, you know what, this is clearly a select. I can click on this badge over here, and I can override Lightroom's the basically the ruling, and I'll say mark it as a select, and so it changes it now, and it moved it over to the select bucket. But that's not that's culling. That's assisted culling. What I wanna focus on is especially when you have photos of, more than one person. You might have picked up on it on the previous photo, but you can see here now that we identify individual people, and we have these little thumbnails here for each person. And so I can click on each person, and I can get the relative score for that person. So for this person, her eye sharpness score is 77. For this person, it's 72. Now again, assisted culling is not meant to make the decisions for you. It's basically there to help you make the decisions for yourself, especially on high volumes of these kinds of portrait photos, where you tell Lightroom, like, hey, eye sharpness is really important for me, so I'm going to give it a higher score. In which case, if the model determines that the photo's eye sharpness is not as sharp as it should be, it'll give it a lower score. But again, you can override it, but it now is a lot easier to identify. You can hover over each person. You can see the badge on the top right of this reticle here. And what's really cool is when you go to, for example, these photos of a bunch of people, and you can see here, each person gets their own thumbnail. So you can click on each person and see, as you click on each row, you'll see that the two scores over here go below. So it's easier to kind of identify which score belongs to which person. And so again, this just makes it a lot easier. It gives you a lot more insight into why the photo was ranked the way it was as a select or reject. If I go ahead here and I bring this score down to 60, for example, you can see now, well, all of these scores are above 60, so everyone is a select. If I go to 70, same thing, it adjusts accordingly. Now, let's go back to, for example, this photo here. Let's say I have the score of 60, just to illustrate that it's not an all or nothing. In this case here, this person's eye sharpness score is 67. This person here is 53. And so you have this combination of where one person has a select based on the scoring for eye sharpness, and the other person has a lower score and it's a reject. So you can make a determination whether this photo should be a select or a reject. And so if we drop to grid, you can see here that rightfully it is a select, especially because, I would consider this person to be sharp. Now, again, this is a photographer error, the photographer being me, where I should not have used an f1.8. It's one of those classic cases where this is the Zeiss Bodice 85 1.8 that I was using, and I shot it at f1.8. No reason to, especially when you can see that these two people are in different planes of focus. This person is closer to me than this person. So classic photographer mistake of getting aperture happy. And so, again, what I would recommend, do your scoring, select the models that you want, do your, select the scoring here, and then go to all, or you could just go to rejects, for example, and evaluate. Evaluate whether, no, you could be like, no, you know what, Lightroom, I think that this is a select, and so you can go ahead and override it. And then once you do, the key here is to wrap things up. If we go to all here, is apply batch actions. And again, I'm not going to go through this because I have a video that explains it, but you can apply batch actions to apply metadata based on whether the photo is a select or reject. So I really do love how we now have this ability to give you more discrete, granular information for photos where there is more than one person. Again, you could just click on each person and get scoring information. It makes it a lot easier for you to decide whether the ranking of the photo as a select is right, or whether if it's a reject, it should be overridden. And actually, goes without saying that you can override the select and mark it as a reject as well. So it can go either way. Let's move on to the next feature. I love this feature. I've been waiting for this to come to Lightroom for a while, and you'll see why in a second. Okay, so as you can see, I use select subject all the time, and also as you can see, it's done a pretty good job. This is the overlay that shows the selection that was made. I mean, for one click, it's a pretty okay job, but it's like you got a lot of it's it spills over a lot. And so this is the original select subject mask. And I want to show you, I have the new one right above it. This is what's now going to be available. I mean, look at the difference between the two. Like in this case here, you've got this spillover onto the baby heron. You've got the spillover over here. And then over here, I mean, look at how clean this is. And really, it really, I've been so thoroughly impressed between the original and the updated model, and there's nothing you need to do in terms of like getting it's just part of Lightroom. Every time going forward after you install Lightroom 9.4, you apply an adaptive subject mask, it's using the new model. And so every time going forward, once you install Lightroom 9.4, you apply the adaptive subject mask, you're using the new model, you don't have to do anything else. And here's another example that I've got for you. Again, this is the legacy subject mask, and then the new one. Like look up here, look down here. So like up here, look how much tighter of a mask that is. And then down here, it didn't even get the legs in this mask, but here it actually identifies the legs. It's so much better. Here in the original, it's selected part of the leaves over here. You could see the spillover over here. Gone. I mean, that's all gone. And so it just really is amazing. Now, you might be wondering what happens if, for example, you have a photo and it had a subject mask already applied, a version prior to 9.4, and you put yourself in one of those states where you've invalidated the AI edit status, and you have to update. And one of the things that has to update is the masking line item, which includes the adaptive masks. Well, let me show you here. Basically, so here, this is the photo, and you can see this is the legacy subject mask. And you can also see that I am in an invalidated state where masking needs to be updated. So go ahead and click on Update All. You'll get a dialog, and this is important. It's saying that, okay, some things might change. And basically, what it's in this case here is saying you're going to get a new select subject mask. It's going to update the old subject mask to the new one. So if you're of the mindset where like, yep, that's good, I never want to be bothered with this again, you can just select this don't show again checkbox, and then click update. So when I do that, you see it updates here. And I mean, if let me just undo, look at this is the original mask, the original subject mask, and that's the new one. I mean, just let me go ahead. I'll zoom out a little bit here so you can get a better view. So once again, I'm going to undo. And so again, not bad, right? Like this is the original, but I mean, man, oh man, the team really outdid themselves here where it's just so much more accurate compared to, I mean, again, this like just like going back and forth. It really is a joy to see, and that this is now available for everyone. All right, so for the next feature, it's actually really technically two features that I'll show you at the same time. And one of them was something that Lightroom Classic users have been asking for, those who've moved over to Lightroom for a while. And so I'm glad that it's here now. Another one is a really nice improvement to a feature that we added to Lightroom also in October at Adobe Max last year with Lightroom 9. So the first feature, I'll just open this photo up in the edit mode. The first feature is an improved interactive histogram. So first thing, before you notice anything else, this also is just something I'm so happy to finally have, and that is just the EXIF information. Before, if I was in the edit stack and I was like, oh, what were the details of this exposure? I'd have to press I to go to the info panel, and I could see all that stuff here. But now it's quickly visible right over here. The other thing we now have is the interactive histogram. And so what you'll notice is that there are 5 regions within the histogram. This has always been true. Here you've got the blacks, and when I hover over, you can see what the current state is of blacks. So blacks is at +5, and sure enough, blacks is at +5. After blacks, we have shadows, exposure, highlights, and whites. Now, what you can do with any of these, let's say I go to whites here, I can click and I can adjust the slider. So I can click and drag right from the histogram, which if you're the kind of person who is visual in nature in terms of like this kind of data, it's sometimes really nice to see the way you can actually manipulate the histogram graph itself. Another thing is as you hover over the photo, instead, when the cursor is outside of the active preview area, you get the metadata, the EXIF information. But when you're hovering over, you're going to get kind of like luminance values from 0 to 255 of wherever the cursor is hovering. And so as you go to these darker areas, you can see how the numbers for RGB are much lower. They're basically almost at 0. And then as I go to brighter areas, you'll see that they're pushing almost to 255. And so that's the first feature, interactive histogram. The other feature is an expansion to a feature that we introduced, like I said, last October, and that is an improvement to color labels. So before we introduced color labels in Lightroom, there were, I guess, technically two ways. You can use star ratings or flags to quickly filter by photos. So you can give it a 2-star or pick flag and filter by those things. I suppose you could also add a keyword, but let's ignore that for now. Um, so one of the things that Lightroom Classic users had for a long time were color labels. Again, we added that in Lightroom 9.0, but now we're making it even better. So you can see these photos have 4 stars, and then if you hover over here, there are the flags. There's the pick and the reject flag, and then over here, there is the color label. And nothing new here. We have red, yellow, green, blue, and purple. What's new though is if you go to preferences, you will now see that there is a color label section over here. And first, before we do anything else, the first thing you could do is you can change the label. So instead of red, the color, I could say, reject. Yellow is, further review. Green is must edit. And then maybe blue is, to share, and purple is shared. If you want to get this granular, you can do that, of course. But the other thing you can now do is uh, currently the keyboard shortcuts for the first 4 colors are 6, 7, 8, and 9, with 1 through 5 being the stars. So 1 being 1 star, 2 for 2 stars, and so on. Now what you can do is I can change this. So I could say shortcut for red should be, say, 9. And then it clears out 9 over here, and so I can give this 6. Basically, you can, do all these things. So that's one of the improvements here. And before I do anything else, let's click done. And if I go to this little area here, you can see that the labels that you just applied are reflected in this menu. So they're here as well. If I go back to preferences, though, you might have noticed this, there is also this section for custom color labels. So if I click this add color label button, you'll see you now have several other colors to choose from. You've got salmon, orange, chartreuse, seafoam, turquoise, cyan, lavender, and pink. And so if you click on one of these, you'll notice here that you now have an additional color. Again, you can change the label, you can change the shortcut, and you can basically kind of override 6 through 9. And then you can also delete if you want to get rid of it. But if you do want to keep that color label, you just cancel to keep the color label and it'll be there. So watch, I'm going to go ahead. I'll just click cancel just so we could start over. And so let me show you here. You can add 5 additional custom color labels. So I'll just add, a smattering of colors here. And then this 5th one, after the 5th one, you'll see that the button is grayed out. And so just like these, the default color labels, you can also add custom labels here. And then you can override, again, keyboard shortcuts 6 through 9, and then you can delete any of these. But when you click done, when you go to the color label picker here, you can see you've got your defaults and then you've got your additional one. So it just makes it easier if you want to really refine using color labels. Of course, if you go to the filter bar here, you can see that there is this new icon here, which has the additional color labels. So if you want to filter by these, you can. And then, of course, you've got the default color labels as well as no color over there. And so that is how you can use the additional color labels. All right. So the next, I guess, it's not a new feature. It's an improvement to a feature we had. So a few versions ago, we added the ability to send a photo from Lightroom to Firefly using the share button. And once that photo is in Firefly, you can choose a model and other parameters, and we would use the photo to generate a video based on say, a prompt that you provided. And then once that video is generated, you could download it, and then you'd have to manually re-import it into Lightroom. Well, we've now streamlined that. So here you can see I've got this photo of a cat that I took in Morocco. And what you can do is you can right click on the photo here, and you'll now see a menu item called Generate Video. When you click on this, this new dialog appears. And so I mentioned how you can still send this photo to Firefly, because here we have three models. So there's the Adobe Firefly video model. So this is if you want a commercially safe model, that's it right there. Then there's Google's Veo 3.1 and Veo 3.1 Fast. Veo 3.1 Fast is the default model that will be selected. Lightroom will auto-identify the aspect ratio based on the source photo. So you can see this was a landscape photo, and so it is going to select 16 by 9. But you can override it as a 1 by 1 square or a 9 by 16 vertical photo if you want to share it, say, on a story or something. You can do that as well. But it'll auto-detect that. So if you open a square photo or a vertical photo, those respective options will be selected. And then, of course, you can choose the resolution between 720 or 1080, as well as the duration between 4, 6, and 8 seconds based on the model. For example, if I select Firefly Video, you can see that the only option is 5 seconds. Another thing that I want to illustrate, these are all credit-based features. So you can see currently for this particular setup, for Firefly Video at 1080p at 5 seconds, that will require 500 credits. But if you choose Veo 3.1 Fast, you'll see at 4 seconds, it's 40 credits. 6 seconds is 60 credits, and 8 seconds is 80 credits. You can always get a live snapshot of how many credits you have by clicking on this disclosure triangle under this credit balance section, and you'll see how many credits you have. You'll see when your next reset date is. And then if you want to buy additional credits, you can click buy. This will load a paywall where you can purchase additional credits, and you can learn more about generative credits by clicking on that link over there. If you're working from your cloud library, you'll also have the option to create a stack. If you're doing this through local, you won't be able to create a stack because local doesn't currently support stacks. Now, this is you can see here, this is the prompt that I gave last time, but there are these other presets. So there's the slow pan, there's also subtle motion and hyperlapse, and then there's custom where you can type your own thing. And so I typed in this prompt, a person placing a small bowl of milk in front of the cat, and then the cat drinks the milk. And so you'd click generate and you're off to the races. To save time though, I already generated that video. So this is Google Veo 3.1 Fast, 1080p, 8 seconds. And if you click on info, you'll see that it has the prompt set into the caption. So that's there for you. And then if I click on play, you can see, you know, I'm not an expert in cats. I don't know if that cat changed. Seemed to get larger. And so, it's totally up to you. I'm seeing obviously way more people, more and more want to kind of expand the use case of their photos. And so this is just a creative way to take a still photo. In this case, it was, this photo over here that I took, and just kind of, I don't know, reimagine it as a video. So totally up to you. If you want to give it a shot, it is there for you. And so the final feature, I'll go through this pretty quickly. So also a few versions ago, we introduced the ability to leverage Topaz Gigapixel to do 2x or 4x upscales. This is also a credit-based feature. So if you use that, what it'll do is basically take your photo and send it to Topaz to upscale, and then Topaz will deliver a DNG file that has the upscaling. And so now we have the ability to use Topaz Sharpen. Totally up to you if you want to use it. I'll just show you super quickly. I already ran 2 photos through. So you can see here's this photo that I took in Morocco as well. And so, a little soft. And so what you would do is you'll right click on the photo, you'll go to enhance with AI. Here's that gigapixel under generative upscale. And then here's AI sharpen. It's pretty straightforward. You have 2 different sharpen amounts, default and strong. And then you also have the option to apply Topaz denoise. Same thing if you're working in your cloud library, you can stack them together, and then you have your credit balance over here. Now, depending on the resolution of the photo, it'll either take 10 or 20 credits. So if it's 25 megapixels or less, it'll take 10 credits. And if it's above 25 megapixels, it'll be 20 credits. It has nothing to do with the model itself. So I already, like I said, ran through this. If I open both of these up side by side, let's just close out the panel so we can get more information. And so this is the original photo. This is the sharpened photo. Um, totally up to you. I'm not going to make judgments. I'm just showing you two photos that I selected as I go through. Yeah, it's up to you if this is something that you're just kind of like wanting to try, or you're in a pinch for just some third party sharpening. That's there for you. Same thing here. Also, actually, one quick thing: the photo that you get back will have it'll say Topaz Sharpen. In this case, this was the strong denoise, and then you can see here that this is the default, so it'll be auto denoise. If I turned off denoise, you wouldn't see this denoise in the file suffix. So again, one more time, just to kind of compare the two. Um, this is that was strong, and then this is the standard with denoise. So this is the original photo. This is the Topaz output. Again, something you want to try. It is there for you. And so I think you'll agree, this was a pretty beefy update. There's a lot here going on between the improvements to assisted culling, the amazing new select subject mask and color labels, interactive histogram, and the other kind of generative AI tools that you have at your disposal. It's just making Lightroom that much more well-rounded. And I'm really excited and appreciate the hard work that the team has put into making this even better. Now, of course, this is just a small part of what's available in Lightroom. If you want to learn everything there is to know about Lightroom, please check out my course called Lightroom Everywhere. Link is in the description below. I also mentioned how I have this deep dive video on how assisted culling works, so check that out, where you can see what YouTube thinks you might like. As always, a thumbs up is greatly appreciated, as is clicking on the subscribe button and the bell icon to get notified of all future videos. Thanks a lot, everyone.